Welcome to Scatter Travel TV and our segment on Alaska again. See, I'm in my fur coat. It means Alaska. It's cold. We went in July. We did a tour of Denali Park first, and then we went down to Whittier to catch the ship. At Whittier, Alaska, our first stop on the ship was Glacier Bay. Glacier Bay is got glaciers in it, obviously, and big chunks of ice, and we got to see some calving. It is a wonderful place, but the only way to get there is to go in by ship. I suppose you could go by plane, but we went by cruise ship, and it was really fun, but it's cold even in July. We are this close to the shoreline, going up further into Glacier Bay. I can't even get back far enough to show you the top of the mountain. But here we go up into this area, in this little bay. Little pieces of ice chunks floating on this big mountain, covered at the top by clouds and mist. The water here is more blue instead of the brown, which means it's probably got more of the fresh water in it instead of the glacier melt. But we are headed up somewhere up in there to see another glacier. You can see I have on a nice fur coat. You'll want something that's really, really warm. Fur doesn't matter, but just make sure that you're really warm. Come in layers, because depending on the weather will depend on how many layers you have. Gloves, maybe an underneath hat as well. Some extra socks, maybe thermals. If you're going to be outside, like today at Glacier Bay, we're outside for a long period of time. So, 2-3 hours sometimes, just so that you can see everything going on. You'll want to be dressed warm. Today it's nice. In May and other days when it's more of a stormy weather or the wind is blowing, it'll be a lot colder. So be sure to dress warm so you can go outside on your cruise to Alaska to see the glaciers. The Marjorie Glacier is one of 12 tidewater glaciers. As you come in, you can get pretty close. Of course, I'm using one of the long lenses in order to get this close. But I love the cracks in this glacier. And this is a glacier that you can see calving off of. Depending on what cruise line or what cruise schedule you go or route that you go on will depend on what glaciers you get to see. So if there's specific glaciers that you would like to see, you need to check on the cruise schedules that you're looking at to make sure that they go there, because they go to different ones. The Marjorie Glacier was just really cool because it was kind of all white ice, and it had these big cracks in it, and we kept waiting for it to calve. Now, I've gone before, and when they calve off, huge chunks of ice just fall off and fall into the water. But when it cracks off, it sounds like the sound of a cannon going off. It's just just huge. It just echoes, and then you'll see the ice falling down into the water. We could see today that there hadn't been much calving because there wasn't very much ice in the water. And if it's calving, there'll be these bigger chunks of ice coming through the water. Another thing that we didn't see on this cruise, but we have seen before, is a lot of wildlife in the water, like seals. The last time we were here, there were seals up on the ice, and they would just kind of jump into the water as we came by. And we didn't see any of those or any whales, and it is possible going up into Glacier Bay to see humpback whales. And so if you're looking for a humpback whale, you just kind of look out across the water and you look for like this spray of mist over the water, and then you can identify where the whales are at. We didn't see any of those things this time, but just the magnificence of the glacier is amazing. Glacier Bay was formed by the glaciers, and as the glacier retreated, it leaves this space, and this space was then filled by salt water. It's a really, really deep bay. A lot of it's over 1,000, so it's pretty huge. And you're going some of the really dark blue, the pretty ice blue ice, and I'm going to show you some of those when we see the
the pieces of ice in the water, as well as you can see even more of it at the Lampu. You can see some of it here in the Marjorie Glacier. But that is when the snow and ice are just so compacted that it's very, very dense. And then you get that bright blue, pretty color.
We are moving away from the glacier now, but you can see some of the big chunks of ice that have calved off the glacier and are still floating. Now, this is just what you can see above the surface. Look at this one. That's as big as a big boat out here. Not a ship, but as big as a big boat. You gotta remember, I'm clear up on the deck of the ship looking down at this thing. And it's huge. Where'd it go? There it is, huge. And yet, this is something that calved off of the glacier earlier and is now floating out here. You can see the blue in it, the blue ice in it. And then there's some dirty, and that's the silt, rock, and dirt that's been gathered by the glacier as it moves across the dirt and gathers some of that dirt with it. So there you can see a little bit of the really bright blue. The bright blue is condensed. It's been condensed and melted together, where some of the upper snow is just, it's snow still, crystals, and it hasn't combined yet. But look how pretty that is. Big chunk of ice out in here that the ship has to miss as we go out. There's a lot of these things floating out here that have calved off the side of the glacier. There's the glacier. You can get an idea of how big this particular chunk of ice is sitting out here. And look at this one. This one's got that bright, bright, bright blue color in it. That's what you expect to see in glacier ice to me, although a lot of it is the dirtier, silty ice that has come down, because it does have that. That's why your water's so gray and murky, is from the silt that comes off of the glacier melt. Another look at that big chunk of ice we just passed. Iceberg, I guess it would be called. And the glacier as we leave it in the mist. Comes a little iceberg right next to the ship. You can see that the underneath of these icebergs is a lot larger than that is sticking above the water. So you can imagine that if you see a piece of ice above the water, it's got a good bit of a chunk underneath it. In the background you can hear the ice hitting itself. You can see that some of the ice underneath these icebergs go way deep and really wide, and all you're seeing is just a little bit of the surface up on top of them. So if you're, you know, in a boat or ship, what you see on top is nothing compared to what's underneath. They carry a great deal of ice. I can't believe something that heavy, even if it's ice, will float like that. This is all ice that's calved off of this glacier, probably in the very recent time period. I would say from the looks of where the ice is next to the glacier, though, that it hasn't calved off a lot. This one we haven't seen anything from nor heard anything. And very little ice up next to the glacier today where it's come off. The name of this glacier is the Lampu Glacier up in Glacier Bay. The Lampu Glacier is an active glacier. It is still keeping up with its recedings. They call it active, or a growing one. I love that it just comes right out of the sides of, through the valley of these mountains. It just carved its way right out here where it melts and creates a whole bay of water. This is a beautiful place from where the ice is melting, sending off waterfalls, the glaciers, just the open land. This is a beautiful place. It might be a little chilly, but it's worth coming to Alaska to see this wilderness area. It is something we need to really think about and be conscious of and take care of our land like this, because someday it might all be gone if we don't protect it.
Going up through Glacier Bay was a great experience. Make sure that if you do take a cruise that it goes up into Glacier Bay, because seeing the glaciers is an experience that you really need to do in your lifetime. They are melting at such a great rate that 100 years from now, even we went about 15 years ago, and it's totally different. It is receded back. You can tell a big difference. So get it, if you want to see the glaciers, go now while they're there, while they're where you can see them and get to them. It's a fun experience. The cruises are awesome up to there. Come and take a look at where you can book them at. You can book them on our site, www.scattertravel.tv. There's even some coupons there for you. Come and visit our website and get a vacation, a fun trip, something that you will always remember.